Hey guys, this is Ruby Doo. Before we start the interview, just want to let you guys know a few things about, the recording itself. First thing, we're gonna hear a lot of noise in the background. That's from the AC from the from the actual building itself. We had no control over that, and if it makes you feel any better, we suffered in the cold. Secondly, you may not be able to hear me as well as because we're wearing a mask inside the Javits Center. They required us to wear masks at all times. Also, I was sick, so I was being considerate and not getting other people sick as well. Uh, there are some minor cuts in the video. I will generally want to keep the video unedited to give you just like the whole experience because it's such an organic conversation. But I have to do a slight cutting here and there because she just said some things that she wanted to be off the record, so I have to respect that. I have some journalistic integrity and whatnot. And last but not least, this was a group interview, so it's other media outlets. So you're gonna be hearing other people besides myself and Oni. Just want to give you a heads up, keep all this in mind before we start the video. I think that's it. Enjoy. Hi Anairis.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be interviewing with you. I'm Drewy Dude. This is
So we're me.
of DNA Reviews. Pleasure interviewing you, honestly. So I guess first things first, how you been enjoying AnimeNYC?
Oh my gosh, it's been really fun. It's my first AnimeNYC and like my second time being in New York, and I think it might be my favorite con so far out of all the ones I've done.
Praise.
Yes.
Well, no, because it's so organized and everyone here is so sweet and there's such like a big Black and Latino community here.
Mm-hmm.
So getting to talk to my people is really awesome.
Yes, there's one thing about New York City. You're gonna find diversity everywhere you
I
look.
know.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And everyone's so honest. So honest, so passionate. I love it.
Very honest with you.
Yes. So how did you enjoy any panels? Did you get any merch?
I haven't been to any panels, but I am going to the Bell movie screening later, so I'm very excited for that because I love Rosetta-san's work. And I have gotten merch. I've gotten a Pokemon Piplup plush because I love Piplup. Piplup's like my favorite Pokemon.
Yes, I'm assuming that's gonna be your starter. If you're gonna be
That
playing.
is my starter. Well, I like Shinx a lot too, but Piplup is my starter.
Yes.
I'm all about Diamond and Pearl. That's like best gen to me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So, could you tell me, when was the moment you realized, like, when, during your voice acting career, like, you had that moment, like, I've made it. Like, I've broken into the industry.
I don't know, I think it's when I started booking work while living in Florida, and this is like pre-pandemic, Like that didn't happen at all, because usually you had to live here in New York, or you had to live in Texas or LA, but I booked from Florida, and who the hell has ever booked from Florida before? I don't know. I think that was a kind of indicator. It's like, oh, okay, I'm doing something here. But I think when I booked Nessa especially was like the biggest indicator, because it's like, oh, I get to actually give back to my community, and I get to heal my inner child, because I loved Pokemon growing up. That was like my thing, and so getting to play a water gym leader who was Black was like, oh, this is me. I feel that,
Absolutely. You get some feel free to ask questions.
Sure. Hello, Anairis. I'm Nay, representing Lost Summer Days. And since there's a lot of people here, I guess I'll just go to one of my biggest questions that I have. So, as someone who has been a fan since hearing you bring one of my favorite characters in Pokemon Sword and Shield to life, I wanted to say that I've had a greater admiration of you, like just following you on Twitter and social media because of the way you interact with your fans and the way that you're humble and you're confident and everything. But another big reason why I have a lot of admiration for you is because it's nice to see someone representing you, not just as like, a fellow black person, but someone who is also LGBT, because I recently came out as non-binary, so to speak.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I want to say if there was any advice you could give to anyone who is probably struggling in their own skin, trying to make it as a creative, or someone in the industry, or someone who just like has dreams but feel like because they are the way that they are, they feel like they can't make it.
Man, my policy has always been like, be so good they can't ignore you. And I struggled with my identity as a black person. I don't think I struggled so much with like my bisexual identity. It's not something I would ever share with my parents because I'm just like, they don't need to know my life there. Pero, I struggled with, accepting myself. I struggled with even knowing who I was. And I've come to learn in the past few years that, like, who I am is okay. What I present is enough. I don't need to be anyone else. I don't need to pretend to be anything else. Like, I don't need to straighten my hair. I don't need to consider, like, bleaching my skin. Like, why would that even pass my mind? Because it's like, this is me, and who you are, you can't, like, get out of your body. You can't get out of, your soul. Like, you are you. You are enough. And you have to lean into that beauty. So.
And I was gonna ask one more question because they asked two, I was gonna ask two as well. But like the second question for now is relating to the previous question. How do you feel about the community that you've built up, like in social media, and people like noticing you in cons and all the cosplayers that dress up as either Mirko or Nessa or whoever? Like, how do you feel about the community that you've built up over the years?
It's still so surreal because like a lot of my work has been done in my bedroom, so it's like I feel like I don't get to really see or I guess feel my impact until I go to these things or until I get to talk to fans online or whatever. But especially after this weekend, if there's one thing I can take away from my community is that everyone is so sweet. Everyone is learning to embrace themselves. I always see everyone be themselves, like wear their natural beauty, and if they ever like struggle a little bit, I always like to remind them like, no, screw whatever anyone else says, be you, and like they accept that. And I feel like I've cultivated a community where like it's diverse and it's loving and it's full of individuality, and honored to do that. I mean, I'm not really trying or anything, but it's cool. It's really cool.
Thank you.
To kind of spin off this question, and that was great. Congratulations to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To kind of spin off this question in terms of just topics about like LGBTQ and all this other things like that. You started an anime called Wonder Egg Priority this year. And I think that went like, not that it went underrated, but it's a very, very good dub. And I think you guys expressed yourselves very, very well, and it was great seeing like an all front female cast doing its thing. What drew you to doing Wonder Red Priority? I mean, it's a show that can be, I think, eye-opening, but also kind of triggering in a sense as well.
It's heavy.
Yeah. So what
heavy.
drew you to kind of do that show?
So I remember seeing like screenshots of the show like around before it got a dub, and I ended up checking out the first episode before auditions were out or anything, and I didn't know what to expect, but what I got was amazing. I the main character, I relate with her so much, and I'm always about media that is honest, media that may cover like some heavy topics, but it's for the purpose of like normalizing it. And I like after the first episode, I was like, I want to audition for this. So I like message the talent coordinator at Funimation. I'm like, hey, if auditions go out for this, can I please get it? And I don't usually like ask for things like that, but I was like, I really want this one.
Yeah.
And I got the audition, and I auditioned specifically for Ai and Rika because their stories like really resonated with me. They're the ones who most felt like they had a part of me that I could like cling on to.
Mm-hmm.
And I booked Rika, and Rika, you know, she was hard to understand because she's somebody who like she likes to hide her emotions, and I'm somebody who just kind of wears it on my sleeve. Like I will be honest about how I'm feeling.
Uh-huh.
But you know, I understand where she's coming from with like dealing with her mom. You know, not quite being in her life the way that she wants her to. I understand what it's like dealing with depression, dealing with wanting to do self-harm. Like when I was a teenager, I struggled with that. And so to be able to, I guess, channel that side of me and be able to explore it on the other side, right? Because back then I was in a dark place. I didn't think I could ever climb out. But where I am now, it's like I'm happy I'm here, you know? And I think if teenage me could see who I am now, she would be bewildered, you know? And maybe she might have tried to, you know, actually hang on even more. And I'm proud of who I've become, and I only hope that, you know, especially with One Direct Priority, that people can see those stories and know that, you know, they're not alone. You know, they're not alone in any of the difficulties faced with, you know, dealing with depression and self-harm and, you know, being LGBTQ. And, you know, I love that story. I love the potential it has to impact. And I've talked to some fans, you know, out on the floor, and they're so enthralled with it. And I'm happy to be a part of something that has that effect, because I think that's kind of what makes this job worth it.
Yeah.
Like being able to make a positive difference, you know. So
You really are so inspiring to people in our community who look like us, who feel like we do. And it's amazing. And I just love the statement, I've heard you say it a few times now on the panels, that UMB's so good, no one can ignore you or take that away. That's an amazing statement. So, can you also share with us a little about what is your regime? How do you train physically so your voice can hit so many ranges and use so many great actor
The audacity
characters?
of your range. It's illegal.
Yeah.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Exactly, but not only your voice range, also how you keep your mental fortitude to keep pushing through all the boundaries that you have to.
you know, I'm not gonna front, like, I still struggle to this day. You know, I'll have episodes where it's like, oh man, do I actually deserve to be here? Even with everything I've achieved, but I think, you know, there's no such thing as like reaching a point where you're fully confident in yourself, or where you feel like, you know, you have done enough. I feel like there's always more to be done, and I'm the type of person where, you know, it's not like practice makes perfection, practice makes better, and I feel like growth is a never-ending thing, not only as a voice actor, but as a person. That's something I really strive for, to be a better person, a kinder person. And when it comes to, I guess, my range, I started when I was 11, and back then I sounded like Sailor Mini Moon and Sailor Moon. That was my voice. And I remember in the hobby projects that I would book, I would always be like the cute little girl, or I would be like kind of like the Sakura type in Cardcaptor Sakura. And I like, that's cute, that was fun. But I would like look at the badass characters and I'm like, oh, they're so cool, but they can't sound like this. So I remember I used to, Fullmetal Alchemist was like a huge inspiration, I guess, with me wanting to expand my range, because there's like so many wonderful performances and so many interesting voices as well. You know, it's not like one-to-one to the Japanese. It's like they try to do their own thing with like the voices, and it still works. Even Naruto, like Naruto isn't exactly one-to-one to the Japanese in terms of like voice quality and everything. Like you have like Might Guy, who sounds so like it's almost cartoony, but it works for him, you know, and I like that kind of creativity. So I think for me, I've never been shy when it came to voiceover. I wasn't afraid to scream. I wasn't afraid to play around. And so I always did, and I think that led to me just having that expanded range. And because I love characters so much, I'm a psychology major. I just love people. I always try to explore different personalities, and I think that, you know, lends to having a range, because it's like, okay, I can access different vocal qualities, but also understand different personalities. So that's, you know, the long answer to that. And what was the second part?
Oh, that was pretty much both parts. One, how did you physically train to get your range? Two, how have you kept your mental fortitude or tried to power through it?
I did it. Hi.
So we're part of Black Ramen Podcast. We're big fans. I wanted to ask you, what were the struggles that you had being a Black woman in this industry? No holds barred, no filter. We all POCs. Who we need to shut down? Who we need to not support? And if you wanted to keep it to just us, we can't. Y'all not live, right? No. Okay, yeah.
I'll cut the audio off.
Right? Snip.
So I resisted starting a career in the industry because when I was growing up, I did not see myself in cast lists. I remember seeing Michiko and Hachin, which was like the first of its kind, you know, and I thought it was gorgeous, especially like, you know, being Latino, it's like, oh, look at all this Caribbean beauty, and especially Michiko, like, yeah, she had like straight hair, but then you also saw like, I think her name was Atsuko, with the curly hair and everything. I was like, oh, this is beautiful, and I've never seen that kind of representation in anime before, because I'm so used to seeing white. But I saw that and I'm like, oh, I sure wish I could get a dub, and you know, I got a dub years later, and I was so excited. I'm like, who's voicing who? And it was quite across the board. And the only Black people I did see in the cast were playing like Walla. Like, they weren't playing anyone important. They were just like random people. And I was like, what? Like, that's like, it bummed me out a lot. And so I kind of figured out, even without, I guess, really talking to anyone on the inside, I figured out that, you know, there wasn't a space for us at the time. And so I was, even though I was confident in my abilities, I was afraid of failing purely because of my skin color. Because I think it's like, you know, fuck, I'm good. So it's like, how can you deny talent just because of how I look or because of my name or whatever? So I kind of just kept in my little hobbyist corner, just doing like visual novels, video games, all that stuff. That wasn't exactly industry level, but I got to audition for industry stuff, and I would never book it, which kind of like added to my bias, and I was like, okay, whatever. But I still did it anyways, because I was like, you know, screw it, you miss the opportunities you don't take, so, you know, I'm not going to exactly stop myself, but I wasn't going to move to Texas or LA either, because it's like, well, why waste my time? But then I saw Danny Chambers book the lead in, I think it's Ancient Magus Bride.
Yes.
I've never seen that before. Never, ever. You know, like, at least in the anime space, I've never seen a Black woman take the lead, especially, like, you know, a lead that was not Black. And she did an amazing job. I remember, like, so many people were excited for her, and I was among them. And that's when I started thinking, maybe there is some space. Maybe I can do that too. But I was still a little hesitant. And then eventually, I guess I couldn't run away anymore, because I ended up booking Kimono Friends and Ruby and other things while living in Florida. And like I said earlier, that shit doesn't happen. That really didn't happen pre-pandemic. They were just like, they wanted nothing to do with anyone that wasn't in Texas or LA or New York. But I ended up booking, and I thought, okay, maybe I can do this. And, you know, when I moved to Texas for the little bit that I did, I I was on all studios rosters like within the first month, so I made progress really quickly, but then, I had some stuff that held me back for a little bit, family emergency, and then the pandemic happened, and then that's when things kind of blew up. But I also think there's still this struggle to keep the space open. I think there's too much of a tokenization. If people, like very often, if there's like a black character, a black male character, oh wow, Zena Robinson, right? Because he's the popular one. Over at Funimation, very often like, oh, black female character, they'll probably give it to somebody white. But if they decide to branch out, they'll probably go to Danny Chambers. And so it's like, it's like, hey, we'll open the door for a little bit and then let somebody in, and then that's it. And I think that's kind of like part of the frustration where it's like, it doesn't seem like there's enough space, like there can be enough space for white people, especially because like, us black voice actors work so hard. There's so many talented people who have not been so fucking hard. Still now, because like right now, even with the success I've faced, I still need to beg for opportunities, and I think it's something that has definitely changed within the past couple of years, really nothing's started rolling until the whole Floyd protest, where everyone was getting called out, but because that was like a whole thing, it died down. And so it's just kind of like pushing, like, no, you need to keep doing this, like, don't stop doing this. And I've always thought that the best way for there to be change is to have more black people behind the scenes, more black people casting, more black people engineering, more black people, being in charge of like the decisions behind the scenes, because, white people, I don't necessarily think the industry is inherently racist, but I do think there's a bias, just like there's a bias everywhere else. And I do think that is just, being consistent and also encouraging the younger generation to continue even when there's struggles. Like, I will talk to people who say, oh man, I struggle to find success. There was this one guy I talked to in a class, this black guy, and he says, I feel like I'm always voicing like these deep voice characters, the commercial guy, or like monsters or whatever, and I'm like, fuck that. Like, be whoever you want, don't let them limit you. You are in charge of your career way more than you think. And, I have my mentor, I had a conversation with him about this, and he doesn't want to audition for black roles because he doesn't want to be put in that box. He literally will say, nope, I don't want this. And, it slowed down his career, unfortunately, but he's also like getting what he wants because, again, you're in charge of your career. So I say wherever you see active, consistent effort in having more black people, or just any minorities like be in the scene, like always support them the most. And whenever you don't see that, like be like, hey, why? You don't gotta like cancel them, but just like question it, and like always uplift anyone, any minority that you see that is trying to get in, because as long as they are recognized, as long as they are supported, like you can't ignore them for long. So.
So, with the roles that you have played, what amongst them? Let me rephrase it first. So, among the roles that you've played, have you considered yourself like a fan of any of them before you were casted to play the roles? Like you mentioned earlier, of course, like you bought a hip-hop plush, so that's like an example right there. But like just sound off on like the various things that you've played that you were a fan of, that you were excited that you got role casted into, basically. So
you mean like series that I was a fan of?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
A lot. When I got into like this industry, like I was like, oh, it's really cool to be an anime, blah blah blah. But I never expected, in 2025 I want to be in Pokemon playing this character. Like I was never specific with my goals. I tried to keep realistic because when you get too specific, that's when you face disappointment, and that just messes with the mental health. But let's see, Ruby I was a fan of already. Pokemon I was a fan of already. My Hero I was a fan of already. Attack on Titan I was a fan of already. You know, it's so funny. I was literally watching Attack on Titan a few weeks before I got cast as Yelena. And Yelena I was like auto-cast. Like I didn't audition for her or anything. I was just randomly cast. And I was and I was like seeing, oh yeah, Attack on Titan is coming back. So I was like, you know, catching up because I didn't finish season 2.
Oh wow!
so I was like,
agree, our friends have to.
I'm so terrible with finishing things. I can love a series, but I will I'm like scatterbrained, bro. But I was catching up with it, and by the time that I gotten to the final season was around the time that I was told by my agent, hey, you have a session for the final season. I'm like, okay. And I thought I would be just like a random, person number 2. Like, I didn't know what the hell. I didn't know of any future characters. And then I see Yelena's face, and you know she's undercover when you first see her. And I'm like, oh, who's this? Isn't this Armin? Because I didn't know. Because there was a time skip. I hadn't seen Armin. I'm like, oh, so they made him taller. Okay, he kind of grew up. He still looks. I don't know what's with the bowl cut. I'm like, shit. Okay.
Time skip.
But then Mike, the director, was like, no. This is a new character. Her name's Yelena. She's actually a big deal. And I'm like, oh. Cool! So, you know, Time was like a big one. Okay, I'm trying to think of others. I wasn't a fan of Miraculous, but I did know about Ladybug already. And I think, yeah, the other ones is like ReZero. I wasn't quite a fan. I did watch it though, so it's like a lot of things is like I've heard of or I experienced or I was a fan of, and then you know years later whatever, oh hey, you're a part of it, and it's always very surreal because it's like oh. I know that when I first watched this or when I first experienced this, I would have never dreamed or thought of it. So it is crazy. Life is crazy.
There are several voices that you've done in video games that I didn't I wouldn't listen to the English dub and I'm like, oh, I didn't know she voiced this character and so on. So a recent example would be you voicing Snow White in Mary Skelter Finale.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I was like, oh, I didn't even know she was voicing this character. So
I only voiced her for that specific game because Christine Marie Cabanos was playing her before.
Oh.
But I guess, I'm gonna assume probably because of her pregnancy, I'm guessing she was not available to reprise. And then the casting director was like, hey, we cast you as this character, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I got to scream and be feral, and it was so much fun. But yeah, it's so crazy how things happen, for sure.
So I heard that you do a lot of character studying before you take on a role. Which role was the most challenging? Which role was the most fun to get into?
The most fun to get into was probably Echidna, to be honest. It was a character type I'd never played before, but, you know, it was fun figuring out her nuances, and it was a huge challenge. I remember we had long sessions, and, you know, I think, towards the end of the first part of the season especially, I was at the point where it's like, okay, this line is written like this, doesn't seem correct. I think that it needs to be this approach because this is the type of character she was. I had that much confidence in my knowledge of the character. So Echidna was probably the most fun and challenging in a way, but I think the most challenging for me was Rika. Purely because, like I mentioned, she's a different, how she expresses herself emotionally is different from me. And also, tapping into, this side of me that I don't really like to face. Episode 7 was a really hard episode for me to do. that's where she's mostly covering her issues with her mother. And I remember the scene where the girls were calling Rika and be like, why are you so upset with your mother? Like she's a nice person. Like, why are you talking so much crap? And Rika just goes off and she's trying to make it casual, but then there is a lot of emotion behind it. And I think I had a hard time at first, like, letting myself connect to it, because you just kind of like want to keep a wall up, but the wall broke. And I remember, like, I was doing her little speech about it, and I remember, like, tearing up and, like, my voice kind of breaking at some point. I was like, oh shit, fuck, this is therapy. And it was overwhelming, but it was gratifying to do. So I think, like, having those kinds of roles where you have to directly face some demons that you personally deal with, that can be a challenge, especially if you're the type where, again, you want to have, like, your walls up. You try not to think about it. You just be avoiding things. I avoid a lot. So yeah, Rika was the most challenging.
Do you notice a difference when you're doing a voiceover for an original English language work as opposed to a translated Japanese or French work?
Yeah. No. The problem, well, not the problem, but the struggle of doing anime dubs is that you're constrained to the lip flaps, and that will ultimately be the thing that matters the most. Does it fit flaps? No? Okay, then let's do this again. Yes, let's move on. And I'm the type of person where I like to ask for retakes. I'm not like Zeno. Zeno will literally ask for so many retakes. Yeah, so many retakes, and he will like he will waste session time for it. I try to be more strategic about it, but I always admire dubs where it sounds so good that it's like prelay. Like it sounds like it's a cartoon basically. Like it doesn't sound stilted, because I think sometimes English dubs can sound a little stilted because of the process of trying to hit flaps and everything. Fullmetal Alchemist is a really good example of that, and even Naruto, because I've been watching Naruto. That's a really good example, and I admire that kind, like being able to really match the flaps, being able to really hit the emotions that are on the face, and like make the performance very dynamic. I always try to make things natural, but it's hard. It's really hard with anime dubs, and because of the process, the nature of dubbing right now. Back in the day, it used to be that you waited like a year for a dub after a series ended, but now you get things immediately. Like there's only like a week to work on an episode, from like the voiceover process, engineering, and everything. Like everything is done within a week for a single episode, and it's a very tight schedule, which means that you can't fine tune as much as you usually would be able to. And
thank you for it.
Thank you. I mean, I think there's some of us, or most of us, I think, try to do as much as we can in the time that we have. But when it comes to ADR, anime dubbing, it is hard. Now, prelay, you have so much more freedom because you are not constrained to flaps. It's literally just your creativity, and I feel like it is inherently more collaborative because you're usually there with the director and the writer, the head writer, one of the writers of the series, and you just discuss the character. You discuss, okay, like, where's this character coming from? All right, I see this. Let me do this. And you don't feel as afraid to ask for more time or more takes because you have the time. It's not like a very strict process. I mean, of course they have their schedule, but like they want it to be perfect too. And so I think there's like a lot more freedom, and thus you can have like a lot more fun. But both are cool in their own way.
I'm next. I was fighting. I didn't want to be disrespectful, but you only got an hour. So, J. Michael Tatum, I don't know if you worked with him.
I haven't, but I know of him. He's cool.
It's amazing. He does a lot with writing some of these animes. Have you ever thought about writing like an anime, a full-blown anime with a studio, and just having your own set of characters, and just be behind, not even voice acting, just being behind that aspect, like controlling that?
Oh yeah, 100%.
And you could pick me for a voice actor.
Hey, no, listen. I'm like incredibly ambitious. Like I cannot like keep to just doing one thing. I love learning as much as I can, and I think I like being able to make more decisions. I've actually
Hi. Sorry to interrupt. It's 11:45. I just want to check in and see how you're feeling. If you want to start wrapping things up, or if you want a few more minutes.
yeah, I think we can go until 12. 12's fine.
Okay.
Cool. All right,
Wait,
thanks.
Quick question. Is there any way to turn this thing down? Because I know it's gonna come off in a lot of the audio that we're recording.
Noise reduction.
Yeah.
To be honest,
I'm out.
I have no idea.
All right, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm
Thank
sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Y'all was kind of chilly. I
It's
remember.
cold, too.
I was like, damn, we'll have to work matching with this audio.
I wouldn't be the one to be like, damn, she all bougie. I'll make it work, but yeah.
But yeah, no, one of my aspirations is to get into directing. I actually have done some casting for like some indie video games before. One that I'm working on is Hero.exe, which recently got kickstarted. And casting for that was really fun because we have like a naturally diverse cast. Not because I tried to push for it. It's more of like, I made sure to listen to everybody and I made sure to evaluate everybody. And I'm not the type of person to think, oh yeah, we need this specific sound. I like listening to unique sounds and I like trying to see how things can work. There was this character, her name was Spite, and I remember the way that the writer described her character description. Like the voice they wanted was like something like Nicki Minaj, because she's like, more of the hip hop type. And I was like, I mean, yeah, but let's play with it. Like, what can we do? And I remember ultimately when we were casting, they were interested in casting this white actress who had like a lot of energy, a lot of good energy. And I liked her audition, but there was another actress, a black actress, who, leaned into being herself, and she had the exact same good energy and everything, just slightly more chill. And I was like, I like that. I like that it's more subdued. I like that she's being herself. And I remember, having to have a back and forth with the devs, and because they weren't quite convinced, and they didn't like the sound. Again, not because they were racist. It's just that inherent bias. They want to hear a certain thing. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, but look at her demo reel. She can, sound like this, have a sound that isn't quite like that. We can direct her, and so I'm saying all that to say it's like I like casting because I like being able to do the extra work of selling a talent that can do the job, that I firmly believe can do the job, and I feel like that's how you get more unique performances. That's how you see more diversity, because the cast I ended up having was a very diverse cast. We had a black girl, we had a Puerto Rican girl, we had a trans actor, and it was all over the place, and it was a really awesome cast. And so I would love to be able to do that for not just anime, but just in general. I want to bring forth more diverse casts. Again, not forced, but just naturally, because I think naturally we are a diverse culture. Naturally we have a variety of different sounds, and I don't think we always have to sound white. I think we can have characters that maybe have a bit of an accent going on. Like back in the day, I still remember Yu-Gi-Oh! With Joey's accent. And it's a little weird. I'm sure people will make their jokes, but it still fit the character. At the end of the day, it still fit. And I think you can play around with that and still have authentic performance, honest story that people can resonate with. So I definitely want to get into directing. One of my big goals is maybe being the founder of Black-owned anime studio. I would love to, like Funimation and Bang Zoom, like get into that. It's kind of hard to find information about that because it's a small industry.
Based here in the States?
Based here in the States, yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
No, I wanna like. I'm a creative person. I love working behind the scenes, and I'm a psychology major. I always thought for my life that I would eventually get into therapy, and I do love that. But I also love the idea of helping people by giving them opportunities to be creative, because I think that's just an honest way to express yourself. And so I wouldn't mind like taking a step back from voice acting to get into that, but it's like so far it's not quite in the cards. I'll have it.
I'm not trying to be greedy, but I'm just saying, I mean, when you are playing, it's therapeutic for all of us. That's a session right there that I don't have to pay for, only subscription-wise. Just saying. I'm just saying.
I'm honored.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I did want to touch on something you said, kind of like keeping work in front of you and not like getting psyched up about upcoming roles potentially, like with all the great things that are coming, like the Spy Family adaptation to anime, and Chainsaw Man, those type of things. Is it difficult to stop yourself if you're reading? Is it difficult to not, kind of put yourself in a role, like way early?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, like I have like some anime that I've kept an eye on a little bit, and I'm like, oh, it'd be cool. But I try to.
Titles, please.
I will not say. I try to temper expectations. I've had opportunities to audition for things that I'm like a huge fan of, and I'm like, oh crap, I would love to be in this. I would love to play this character, and I try to tell myself, no, listen, you know where this leads. This will lead to depression, to being miserable. Like keep yourself focused on your work, because I just try to like send and forget when it comes to auditions. But I've like when it came to like Nessa and Mirko, I spent like way too long on those auditions because hell yeah, I wanted to be those characters. But I also try to be like, okay, it's fine. But I remember with Mirko, I was thinking, yo, if this goes to a white actress, I will be so petty and not watch the stuff. I swear to God. At the very least, if it doesn't go to me, go to somebody black. But yeah, it's hard to you can't control yourself. If we could, like, probably wouldn't be toxic sometimes. But I think though having that passion for a character, kind of leads to having a better performance, because you'll like do the extra work. Because I think sometimes, especially like the anime we have now, like sometimes they're just throwaway anime. Like they really do be just some throwaway anime that like nobody will watch. And so it's hard to like put like a lot of passion into it. But when you have things like Chainsaw Man, things like Homie-san, and all these like wonderful works that are full of passion, even behind the scenes of the Japanese anime studio themselves. You want to put forth that same passion, and you want to be able to hit the nuances, be able to provide your honest interpretation. I watched this interview that Troy Baker did, and he says he doesn't audition for things. He has meetings.
Wow.
He will have meetings, which is basically like having an audition, but like he doesn't try to sell, the character that the devs expect. He sells his version of the character, like what he imagines can be the character, and that kind of that ability to be collaborative, to bring yourself, or to bring that much creativity into a role. That's what I aspire to do more in my auditions. I struggle with it sometimes because I know what casting directors may want, so I can lean into that, but I try to be more of myself, and I try to accept that even if that's rejected, that's okay. I still did it. So.
Last question from us. If you could take any role you want, and I mean past, present, future, like, I don't know, hypothetical time machine, you go back in the time, you say, sorry ma'am, sorry sir, this role is mine.
It is
what would it be?
Goodness gracious. You know, I think it would have been cute to play Sakura in Cardcaptor Sakura. She's like adorable. I think I figured out that that's probably my favorite magical girl anime in terms of like the traditional ones.
Yes.
You know, and I feel like she.
I got more. Thank you, appreciate you, Kim. So with non-shonen being really big this year, do you think there'll be more non-shonens that are gonna be like with major roles available for just you guys? Because I feel like men love shonen, they love fight.
Yeah, that's true.
But y'all should really try some shoujo. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's fire. It's fire. Story is everything. Just saying.
Right.
Do you think it could be big for 2022? Do you think there'll be more titles out there for more, you know, based story, shoujos, and romance that guys need to get into? You get lessons. Just saying.
I think so. Like, I mean, I guess Komi-san came out this year, but I've been watching that, and that's like a really good shoujo.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely potential. I think we're kind of like running out of shonens to have. Although I will say, like, one thing I would love to see is a shonen where the girl is the main character. I know that kind of defeats the purpose, but I would love to see like a badass female hero that's just kicking ass in like a popular anime, like just please.
Claymore.
Really
good.
I need to watch that. I think I watched the first episode and I really liked it.
No, it's so good. So
Oh
good.
my gosh.
I can see you doing this.
You manifested it. Put it out
See
there
that?
in the universe.
See that? Let's put it out there. Let's put it out there.
No, but I definitely think there's potential. I think there's even maybe a desperation for it because like right now the formula seems to be okay, we have popular shonen and also we have isekai. I personally am not a big fan of isekai.
Oh my god, jobless reincarnation, please try it.
I will
It's very
try.
good.
Wait, what is that? That's not Muchiko, is it?
Yes, yes,
Muchiko
yes.
Tensei?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like Faraway Paladin because it reminds me of that.
Yes.
That one I
Isekai
like.
feel. Is it
Yeah.
isekai or just isekai feel? It's
No,
isekai.
it is.
It's an isekai. It's
Yeah.
good. It's
I
good.
like
It's
that
good.
one.
I can see you in that one too.
But yeah, I think it would be cool to have kind of like a renaissance of anime similar to what we had in the beginning of 2000, where we have like a whole bunch of diverse work. You know, we had stuff like Ergo Proxy. We had stuff like
Elfin Weird.
yes, like I can't even think of it, but there were so many like diverse anime. There wasn't really like, you know, oh yeah, we're having nothing but harem anime or nothing but this or that. It was just so like we had interesting shows that like covered so much of the human experience. And I think if we were to have a renaissance of that, that would be amazing. But who knows? Maybe one day we will break out of the isekai hell that we are in.
I hope so. To Your Eternity definitely changed a lot for everybody.
I
so
love
I want to
that.
see more story based. With beautiful art though.
Mhm.
So shout out to that studio.
Yeah.
I got a silly question. Kind of silly. So yesterday during the panel, you said you were a fan of Digimon. I am also a fan of Digimon.
Yes.
What would be your crest in Digimon? What would be the crest that would define you? The one that you gotta search under a rock, beat some giant elephant monster up, and then like, damn, I found this finally. It's all come together. Like, what would be your crest? What would you think? You can make one up too. You can
Yeah,
I
make
know. I'm trying to.
crest of vibes or something.
Crest of vibes, yo. I think. I mean, Crest of Anxiety would make sense. but I, you know, I mentioned earlier I'm ambitious. Probably Crest of Ambition. You know, Crest of honesty. I think. I think I'm a very honest person, and you know, I try to be honest, but also me letting myself be honest, completely honest with myself. I think I still struggle with that. So I think that would work in the way that yes, this is how I am naturally, but this is also something I need to face and be better about. So
Are you watching Ghost Game?
I started watching the first episode, and it's the first Digimon in a while that I'm actually interested in. Because it's been the seasons have been weird. It's Sad Squad.
Yeah.
I think my last question would be, so being that also you mentioned earlier, like before we even started, that like this is your second AnimeNYC and this is like one of the first cons that you've been to since this whole thing basically reopened. How do you feel now that since everything is slowly reopening, things are picking up pretty much right back, not right back where they left off, but like you feel like there's more of a bigger like, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a bigger like, not so much because everyone is like glad that everything's back, but more so like there's a bigger passion in the air, I guess, so to speak. So like, how do you feel like knowing that like things haven't really missed a beat since what happened in the last year or so?
One thing I've found is that I think ever since this whole pandemic crap happened, I feel like there's more empathy between us. I almost feel like we've grown closer in a way. Like, there's still like idiots that want to like be racist or hateful. Screw them, whatever. But like, I feel like it's so much easier to relate with each other, to come to each other from an honest place, an emotionally honest place. And I think, there's a newfound appreciation for life. I don't think we realize I don't think we realized like that how much we were taking for granted. How much we were taking for granted just being together like this, being able to connect, being able to laugh, and appreciate anime, appreciate all these different things. And I feel like now we'll just have like a stronger community all together, and also better content where we're just like being unapologetically ourselves, creatively and in our personal lives.